Oh boy, do we have irony here. Al Sharpton came out the other day and stated that he was worried that Trump might put him on a list if elected. Oh my god, he's going to have a naughty list. He's going to be rounding up, putting us in concentration camps. Like FDR did, the Democrat socialist back in the 40s. Or he's going to, we're going to be harassed, we'll be blackmailed, or something like that. He's going to put us on a list. It's basically like the Gestapo in World War II. I found this ironic. Some people may have forgotten. Do you remember after J6 when AOC was talking about how they were going to put people on a list? Quite literally, she stated this. It was a literal statement. We're going to have a list of these people, these MAGA extremists. I'm like, well, just make sure that I'm on that list, please, because, yeah, I believe in MAGA. And I do believe that the nonviolent J6 protesters should all be out right now, but, some of them are still in the gulag. Maxine Waters, she called for similar things not long after. She also called for people to not to constantly harass political figures that happen to be aligned with Trump. Not let them go to the restaurant. Don't give them a moment's rest. We saw like the Summer of Love riots and all of these other things that we've seen over the last decade. And it's usually the left that's trying to suppress, that openly alludes to putting people on lists. We've had, waves after wave of cancel culture, people being targeted for literal discrimination in employment, people being deplatformed, people being debanked. These things were not pioneered by Trump or by MAGA. If you look at some of his earliest statements, actually, for Agenda 47, it's basically we're going to uphold free expression, not have censorship and suppression. And not have this sort of weird political retaliation that really, it's always kind of low-key been a thing in the United States. Like you have like the G-Man and Hooverism and stuff like that. The Red Scare era, etc. You certainly had moralism in the 80s. You had counter-moralism in the 90s and so forth. It has been a thing. We haven't seen anything quite like the latest round of cancel culture and now left-wing moralism. We haven't really seen it before. Closest approximation would be the intimidation tactics of anarchist and socialist groups way back at the dawn of the 20th century. A lot of people don't really know about the sort of stuff that happened there. You had union busting, you had union v. union, businesses sending like agents after each other, muckraking and yellow journalism and firebombs, anarchists bombing rail lines and stuff like that, saboteurs and including foreign agents. That's probably the closest approximation to what we've been seeing lately. It was 100 fucking years ago. More than 100 years ago. You start getting that in the dawn of the 20th century, arguably the end of the 18th century to some extent. You get some of those movements. So when Al Sharpton says he's worried about being put on a list by Donald Trump, you're giving yourself all too much importance. Nobody would bother, even if the right-wing evil MAGA crowd, the Nazis, were to start making naughty lists of people that were not allowed to use banking or to speak out online, sort of what the left has done to non-leftist groups over the last decade. Even if that were the case, nobody's going to come for Al Sharpton. He fucking has been. Isn't he like 80,000 years old or something? I don't even know his age. I'm going to look it up right now. Let's do a little bit of fact-checking. How old is Al Sharpton? Let's see. He's 70. He looks like he's more than that. Okay, well, again, there was a time, maybe 20 years ago, when people would fear Al Sharpton, and Jesse Jackson as well, the tag team people. Because they'd go to a business and they'd say, sure would be a shame if your business were broken up, but if you donate to our cause, we'll definitely not call you racist even though your hiring practices are discriminatory. It's a shakedown, mafia style. He finds himself in a position where it's a little bit harder to do that now. Al Sharpton's name went from an A-lister on the left to like a C-lister. Nobody's going to literally put you on a list, Al. It's not going to happen because nobody gives a shit. Like 10 people still pay attention to you. Basically, Democratic politicians ham it up with him once, just to get a photo op as part of that same shakedown system that he's been employing now for decades. And that's all. Nobody cares, Al. No, you're not going to be on the naughty list. You're going to be on the completely irrelevant list. Nobody gives a fuck. The irony, though, of liberals complaining about Trump marching the troops to the streets, putting people on lists. Dude, that's what you yourself have been doing. It's a form of projection. Always blame your enemy for what you yourself are doing. It's a Saul Alinsky tactic, basically. These communists, they learned from that and from other individuals within that general socialist lexicon. And the liberals worrying about that. Al, you're so outmoded at this point you don't even seem like you're on the far left. I mean, you are. You're on the old school far left, though. I'm surprised that cancel culture hasn't come for you because you're male and apparently straight. Well, you've only got one grievance box, Al. You're not allowed to speak anymore because you're just black. And that doesn't impress people anymore. J.K. Rowling is reckoned to be far right at this point. She's a third-wave feminist who probably votes for the goddamn Green Party. I mean, she does own a castle in France. It's not uncommon, by the way, for people to buy them because there are so many of them. And I mean, God, talk about irony. I can't think of anything more ironic. AOC literally and explicitly, and she's hammed it up with him too, explicitly called for lists and said, we're going to put your name on a list if you speak out. Maxine Waters has done the same thing. Contemporary Val Sharpton, although I think she is in her 80s. She looks more like she's in her 100s. She looks like the Tomb Keeper, the Crypt Keeper, or something like that. So the irony is quite sheer. For left-wingers, it's like any time a left-wing commentator steps out of line on a social media platform, Instagram, fucking Facebook, wherever it has to be, X, and they say something deranged. So they literally make death threats against the fucking president, or they start, shouting racial things, or do something, or start insulting another person, stalking and harassing and doxing and stuff like that, and they get punished for it. Oh my God, see, it's right-wing cancel culture. Meanwhile, you've got thousands and thousands of examples of people being algorithmically demoted, banned, debanked, having their businesses closed down, having their lives ruined by left-wing groups. It is very ironic, therefore, it's hypocrisy. It's like 100 to 1, based on what I've seen. Content creation among YouTubers and people who make vlogs and things like that. The number of people who have been punished for even pedestrian views, who happen to hold views that would generally be reckoned to be on the right wing of politics or the libertarian wing of politics, I've seen this myself as well, versus those that are on the left or more liberal, is like a 10 to 1. There is no comparison. They've tried to do studies on this, but the numbers are all fucked up anyway, so, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics, I suppose. There is a huge differential. I know it, most of you have observed this as well. If you've followed... let's say you randomly follow 100 people on the left wing of politics and 100 people on the right wing of politics as of the 2016 election. By now, you've probably seen several dozen of those figures on the right, at the very least demoted, if not banned, on multiple platforms. You've seen it with maybe 2 or 3 of the liberals. But somehow, this lopsidedness is not taken into consideration, and Al Sharpton has to worry about being put on a list. Who's going to do that, Al? AOC might put you on a list for being not far left enough. That would be ironic. The far left decides to cannibalize the far left and shake them down. AOC demands that Al Sharpton fund her campaign, or she'll call him a racist. Or she'll call him sexist or something like that because he's got a dick. That's about all. Peace out.